People had been coming to the Big Spring for centuries. First the creek, and then the Cherokee. All drawn by cool water that attracted plentiful game. Trappers and settlers soon followed. In the late 1700s, John Hunt, a Revolutionary War veteran, established his home at the Big Spring. And then other folks came, all looking for the same thing, a new life. When folks decided to form a new town, they named it for John, and Huntsville was born. The climate was mild, and the soil was rich. Cotton was established, and it quickly took hold. People prospered, and the little town of Huntsville grew. Planters started to build big townhomes as a show of their growing wealth as Huntsville prospers. Huntsvillians became prominent citizens of the Alabama Territory, with growing political and economic influence, all driven by the wealth of King Cotton, including the bad that came with it. In 1810, the state of Alabama was formed, and Huntsville became its first capital. Andy Jackson stopped by on his way to defeat the British, and President Monroe visited in 1823 and was honored by grand parties in the parlors of the huge Huntsville mansions. Davy Crockett spent too many nights gambling at the Huntsville Inn. A grand culture flourished. The ladies of Huntsville were described as among the most fashionable in the South, while the gentlemen of Huntsville trumped each other with even larger and grander homes. It was some party. In 1861, the party stopped as a politically torn Huntsville joined with the state of Alabama in forming the Confederate States of America. The decision was a bitter one, as citizens took opposite sides on the question. And when the Confederacy decided that war was their only option, the citizens of Huntsville quickly got behind the cause and sent their youngest and bravest to war. Early on, Huntsville was invaded by Yankee forces, whose officers soon occupied those grand homes and ironically saved them from destruction. In a sense, Huntsville had escaped most of the horror of the war. The Reconstruction years following the Civil War were not kind, as citizens were displaced, and in many cases, those Yankees never left, but chose instead to put new roots down in the town that they had grown to admire. Some even found favor with the local girls, who had lost beaux and husbands to the lost cause. Huntsville struggled through the turn of the new century and weathered the Great Depression as it became the watercress capital of the world. 2 world wars came and went, and Huntsville sacrificed more of its young and bravest in the defense of freedom. In 1950, a group of captured German scientists were transferred to Huntsville's Redstone Arsenal. Huntsville, because of its past history, well understood the challenges these new scientists and their families faced as they made Huntsville their new home. In return, these new members of the Huntsville community started to contribute not only to the space program, but to the community as well. Today, their legacy continues. Huntsville started to grow again as more engineers, scientists, and technical folks came. Huntsville quickly became the center of the U.S. space race with the lofty objective of helping America win the race to the moon. And its residents gladly tolerated their windows being broken regularly, as the test firing of rocket engines literally shook the ground. Schools were stretched beyond limits. Old country roads became congested, and it became obvious to the city fathers that infrastructure needed to be expanded. Included in this plan was the initiative to build a new high school in southeast Huntsville, the epicenter of Huntsville's suburban growth. In 1967, 3 American astronauts died on the launch pad at Cape Canaveral, preparing for the first launch of NASA's Apollo spacecraft. Virgil Gus Grissom, a veteran of the Mercury program and the leader of the Apollo team, was among the heroes that died that day. So when it became time to figure out a name for the new high school, the decision was easy. They named it after Gus. Virgil Gus Grissom High School opened in 1969. And that is where and when it all began.
That was fun. And being in the band was fun. The band trips, going to Six Flags, we blew everybody out of the water. Every time we went anywhere for competition, we blew them out of the water. We were the best.
We were the best.
We were the best.
Class of 72, Saul Ginsburg.
Kind of give us your impressions of Grissom, the first day that Grissom was open. What's your recollection? What do you remember?
First day I skipped. We went to the river. Second day was good.
When we first came here in '69, this place was just barely, you could get by as far as a school. And now you look around and they've got all these awards and trophies and accomplishments that the last 40 years that it's just unbelievable.
Grissom Hayes. So it was exciting to go there. We didn't go in first day of school and look around and say, what the heck, what kind of school is this? Because nothing was there. If you think about what we had at Grissom High School, we had no food, so we had McDonald's hamburgers, which we all remember well. Now that would be, like death. No one would eat, Big Macs, but we ate Big Macs every day for as long as I can remember, and loved it, frankly. Cafeteria wasn't operational. There was concrete floors, so rolled up chunks of carpet everywhere, and I think we sat on the carpet as chairs.
Just the thought of a brand new school and having McDonald's every day for lunch.
What did you have? Do you remember what your order was?
Number 2 combo with apple pie.
I agree. We had the big rivalry of Mountain Gap. I mean, we were big rivals at Whitesboro Junior High. And I remember going, how is this going to work out? But our principal, Mr. Davis, I can always remember he was always on our side, or he appeared to be on our side. And it just worked. I mean, we all got together, and I remember they only kept him a year, and then they moved him because he was such a good bringing people together, and everybody got on the same path and enjoyed it. And then the school, of course, was unfinished. That was a treat, and we all loved McDonald's.
Well, the biggest thing that hit me about Grissom is when we were out on the back where the band used to practice.
Yeah.
And Ray Reynolds was in that coffin. And they were talking about the tiger being born. And he pops out, and I say, who is this?
We had no windows, which wasn't a deficit as a result of the construction schedule. They just decided no windows was a good idea. Whose idea was that, by the way?
Well, that was the new cutting-edge architecture at the time.
So sunlight was deemed to be harmful, probably the UV
It was kind of that prison
rays.
approach.
Yeah, so it had no windows.
Like I remember the pods, that's one thing that really sticks with me because, like I say, they didn't have windows, so you didn't know where the hell you were.
Exactly.
I needed to be in history, but I was always in math. Sometimes on purpose, though, I might add.
Second day was good. Got a book and then ate McDonald's. So what's wrong with that?
One of the great things to do in any kind of a classroom setting is to try to make someone else laugh and therefore get in trouble with a teacher. Whitey Bloom sat right in front of me in some math class, and Whitey was known as being a very good baseball player.
Right.
And I was sitting there listening to the teacher, seeing Whitey's head. Whitey, as you recall, had a mop, huge, thin blonde hair that just like covered his entire head. And I was sitting there in class trying to pay attention to the teacher when all of a sudden Whitey, who was in front of me, so here's his back, and the next thing I know, he's turned around and he goes, "Did they call me out?" And yes, I broke down laughing and was sent from the classroom.
In English, that we were watching Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and the bells didn't ring, and we were late getting to second period, and we all got sent to the principal's office. We told her what happened, and she said to stop us anyway.
This was the hallway to the choral room, and today this is the penal colony. This is where all the kids go that have misbehaved. And I think that's very appropriate that they utilize the old choral room because I think the inmates are pretty consistent.
And we have now a senior lunchroom, and then the lunchroom for everybody else.
Class system, the 1 versus 99%. I like that.
Okay, so senior, this one right here.
So this is the other side of the swing choir facility, which is now a highly elite, membership-only lunchroom.
And here's somebody doing their homework and lunch.
That's new. Now there's so many students.
This is Al Smith.
Can you imagine 40 years from now, you guys will be these guys?
Hey, I got to get to homeroom.
I was in swing choir with most of the football team, which was a lot of fun, and Mr. Gandy never had control of us, except for maybe the last 2-3 minutes, and he would shake that stick at us and quiet, 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 and we'd finally be quiet. And I remember one time he was like, okay, we sang, and then he says, somebody over there, kind of pointing in my directions, out of tune, so I just mouthed it the next time, and it went right on by. So,
You know, as I was preparing for this interview, I thought about my teacher, Miss, I think it was Hereford, the Spanish teacher.
That would be Hereford.
Whatever.
Yes.
And that really catapulted me into my career path.
In what way?
Not to teach.
Not to teach.
Right.
The other memory from swing choir was actually a thing that has since then kept my talents into the shower. We were actually competing for one of the choral groups, and they asked me to please stand in the back and mouth the words. And for whatever reason, I should not utter a sound. That's probably because I'm not a very good singer, but there were a lot of pretty girls in swing choir.
we always said we had first class PE, driver's ed, and we always had to get the donuts for the teacher's lounge. And we had a Mr. Donut over off of Airport Road back then. And I'd never driven a stick shift. I think we had maybe a little Volkswagen.
Yeah,
Y'all can,
Volkswagen,
okay,
yes.
a little Volkswagen. And it was my turn to get from wherever the last person got out to turn into Mr. Donut. Thank heaven he had pedals on his side. Because he's like, turn now. And I turned, and I didn't do anything with the clutch of the brakes. And he's like, stop, stop. And people in Mr. Donut were just looking at his car coming at him. And anyway, we got our donuts. And needless to say, I did not drive back to school.
The one thing about this school that I tell my kids that are now grown is that we had a smoking court here, and I don't know if anyone else brought it up in their interview, but I think it's astonishing that the way cigarettes are treated nowadays is just this big bad stigma, but when you came to school here at the break, if you wanted to go in, you could smoke. And you would walk by that door, and if it swung open, a big cloud of smoke would come in the hallway.
One day I was in English class, and somebody lit up a joint, and it was being passed around the room, and it was being passed around. I thought, oh God, I got to get out of here before it gets to me, because I don't know what to do with it. So I and I thought, well, I'm going to get in trouble if I leave, because they're going to think, oh, I told on them, And back then, that was a bad thing,
This is obviously no longer in use because kids, I'm sure, don't smoke anymore.
Really, I remember more about Grissom was Ray Reynolds telling me to pull my wallet out of my pocket and getting licks.
We all just, as far as dances, we just went out with friends. Like when proms came, our guy friends, and we would play basketball, and so, we just thought we're all friends.
Ninth grade, a girl by the name of Marthel Toodles Garrett asked me to my first, dance. And that's when I actually thought, well, maybe girls will look at me.
The other, my dating story, though, just reflecting my social ineptitude, was that we formed, do you remember, called the G Club, our letter club?
Yes. Yeah.
So I think Coach Webb was kind of the key guy. He was our go-to guy for that.
Didn't really.
Well, who did you want today?
Myra Howell.
Myra.
I remember her
Let's call her up.
at the roller skating ring Not at the ice skating ring, which was another big thing at Grissom.
But I was awful shy. And then my senior year in high school, went to a movie with Jim Blue and Karen Wells the summer before our senior year in football. And started a relationship that lasted for about 4 years after that, through high school and into college.
Well, I only had one here, sort of at Grissom. It was Debbie Davenport. We had.
I remember Debbie. Wasn't she a cheerleader?
Yeah. She was a cutie.
And he had a twin brother, Winston. Weston and Winston Ross. And Weston's who I dated off in high school. And Kathy Armstrong and I were going up the steps in the front, and we had seen Winston downstairs. And we got up to the top, and there was Weston up there. And Kathy looked at Weston, and she goes, "Now, wait a minute. Did I just see you down there? How'd you get up here?" And that was how I met Weston.
A question about the prom and the dress. We wanted to do it upright for our prom, our senior year. So we checked around town for tuxedos.
Crushed velvet, if I recall.
Well, crushed velvet, Huntsville was a small city. They didn't have crushed velvet, so we checked around and found the nearest crushed velvet tux was Nashville. So we did a road trip, and we picked up our tuxedos, crushed velvet, and we were the hit of the prom.
Well, let's go back to the junior prom.
Okay.
At that point, the airport had a restaurant called the Rib Cellar, which was very, very, did y'all go there?
I remember.
It was very, very fancy. So our little group, Hunter Wade, I think, because they were seniors. Remember, the class ahead of us only had about 100 people, so we had some mixed classes in that, seniors and juniors, and we went there for dinner, which was such a treat. That was a lot of fun. I remember coming back here and had the big, what do you call it? It wasn't a strobe light. What do you call it? The disco ball, the huge disco ball. I don't know where we went for our senior prom.
Can you do me a favor? We're filming a documentary outside here, and we'd like to look at the lobby. Yep, this is the old lobby. This was the scene of many a prom informal. And this was the place to be. This was the old grand ballroom. It seemed much bigger when you were 16 or 17 years old.
And yes, we've just begun.
When Grissom was founded in 1969, it meant that the new Grissom players would no longer be able to achieve their dream of playing for the Huntsville High Crimson Panthers, a perennial state powerhouse, led by their legendary coach Tom Owens. Instead, Huntsville had been transformed overnight into their primary rival, their hated rival, and beating them became the goal of that ragtag group from Grissom. Those 33 young men dedicated themselves to the unthinkable goal of defeating Huntsville High before their graduation in 3 years. In the fall of 1971, a small, undersized Grissom team, playing their first year in Alabama's largest football category, not only beat Huntsville High, they went to the state championship series and became the first non-Montgomery team to beat mighty Sidney Lanier High School in Crampton Bowl, riding a state-leading defense combined with a conservative ball-controlling offense. The Tigers finished number 3 in the state of Alabama.
The teams at Grissom really overperformed very quickly. I can remember our basketball team, first game of the season, I guess when we were juniors, actually upset the state champion, Decatur High School, and that was a huge win, and really established Grissom's total athletic department. We also had a state champion trackster, a guy named Steve Bolt, who held records in track and field for years and years. And of course, we were so football centric that we probably didn't give them enough attention as a school and as a community. But we had a great athletic department. Swimming and golf, led by Barry Holt, was a dominating force. And of course, wrestling, anchored by Saul Ginsberg, was quite the team. For 40 years, Grissom teams would follow in the footsteps of that legendary bunch of quick, mean, agile, and mobile tigers. Such names as Phillips, Holby, Parker, Wagner, Neller, Smith, Burke, and Curry would become well-known standouts from that scrappy bunch. But alongside also were rockin' redneck Ronnie Coppock, Chipper the Artful Dodger Floyd, Preacher Chambliss, Pig White, and Silent Paul Irwin. There was Jimbo and the young'uns Mark Hercules Johnson and Scooby-Doo Scoble. And how about Crazy Legs Lance and the late Steve Radar Riley? They were a tough bunch, many playing two ways, not particularly fast, but oh, were they quick, and they were mean. It was a different type of football. It required sacrifice. It required commitment. It required everything.
One of my memories from the Madison Academy game that we actually have posted on the website was that after the game we lost a heartbreaker 8-6 after turning the ball over about 12 times during the course of the game. We lost to a very good Madison Academy team. Coach Robinson came on the bus afterwards and looked around and said, you know, guys, you played your hearts out, you did your best, I'm proud of you, you know, and he left the bus. At which point we all were incredibly relieved. Moments later, that relief dissipated as Coach Childress appeared on the bus, and the first thing he did was slug the ceiling of the bus, which nearly punctured the roof, and the next sound I heard was the sound of chin straps being buckled throughout the bus. Coach Childress had heard Coach Robinson's comments, and he didn't exactly say, "I beg to differ." I think the way he put it is, "I'm not a damn bit proud of you." And then he walked through the bus, going person to person, reliving the evils that we had done during the course of the game. And I remember he saved his best line from Mark Johnson. He walked up to Mark on the bus, grabbed him by the face mask and said, "Mark Johnson, I am this close to committing homicide."
I seem to recall you were hit on the head a lot.
Yeah, I did have the concussion. Wore the white helmet, and I think why didn't we paint it? And I begged the coaches to paint that helmet because on the films on Saturday morning, you could tell it was me. You couldn't see my number, but you could see that white helmet. So I got, you know, I couldn't get by without missing a block or missing a tackle.
Our first All-American wrestler.
I did wrestle. I played baseball with Al.
I thought I had a hurt ankle. John Childress decided I didn't. So he pulled linemen and fullbacks, and then the quarterback was instructed that if he's still standing, knock him down. After every unsuccessful attempt that I had, the coach was in my face yelling at me, telling me that I should be tackling the quarterback. Well, after 3 or 4 plays, I've got tears coming down my eyes. I'm furious, I'm mad. I don't even think about my ankle. And I'm killing the quarterback. I pity poor Al Smith because he was the subject of my rage at that moment for no good reason. And so I'm stalking off the field after practice, still full of rage. John Childress comes up beside me, puts his arm around me, bites me on the ear, and says, "Phillips, do you still love me?" That rage just fell off of me. You know, you can't be mad at somebody that bites you on the ear and asks you if you still love them.
I vividly remember, though, our last game when Decatur beat the crap out of us. It had never rained the whole year,
Right.
and we played in a monsoon, and we'd never been behind at halftime. I'll never forget, and you might remember this, but I threw an interception. Well, it was like 3rd and 20. The guy ran it back, he fumbles the ball, and I get back in the huddle, and I look at you guys, and I said, well, at least we got a first down.
The funny part about that whole game is when they kicked off to us, they kicked it off high and it went to me. They slow us back at Grissom High School. And I took it, yeah. And I found a hole, and I forget how many yards, but I'll never forget that. I said, oh my God, because I was a lead blocker. You know, I was playing up short, and they did it didn't go to Chip Floyd or one of those speedsters back there.
The Huntsville Grissom game was a war. So Prior to the Huntsville game, I had, as usual, been running my mouth to the Huntsville players. And right at the end of the game, and we were ahead 6-2, with about 2 or 3 minutes left, but they had this all-state linebacker, a guy named Robert Toney. And with about a minute left, he got a running head start before the ball was snapped and just laid into John Scoble, who was the opposite guard from me on the other side of the line. I didn't know what was going on, but later on I found out that they had put my picture up on their bulletin board with some of the quotes that I had made prior to the game. And fortunately, Robert Toney wasn't that smart and got a little bit mixed up as to which side to hit. So that hit was targeted to me, not John Scoble. And I've apologized to John many times since.
Coach Childers, I think a lot of the reason that we turned out, and we actually turned out pretty well, I think, compared to a lot of people, but it was because of those coaches and what they instilled in us and scared the hell out of us at such an early age that we took it through life. And I'm a better person for being around those people.
This area didn't have lockers, and this used to be the hangout because it would catch people coming down either side of here. And so all the cool people, which I was not one of, would
all tried to get in here whether we were
just
cool or not.
just line up here and just be cool, because there's an art to being cool.
I remember most of the cheerleaders, Davenport, Nancy Fellows, Melanie Twitchell.
I think probably the most fun we had were the pep rallies. I think, during football season, I mean,
Do you remember the speeches?
Oh, the speech, I mean, we had great class bonding, I guess I should say. So I remember that was always so exciting.
Person is that we weren't really cliquish, and you could be friends with everybody.
Yeah, I
Everybody
remember.
was friends with
I felt
everybody.
like it was like that.
Yeah, I had friends throughout all of them, and so I think that's why I had the most fun that I had.
Not many people realize this, but we were real big behind our band.
Yeah.
Well, we were all there under the stadium, scared to death. These people we were playing had whiskers and had wives, I think. And all of a sudden in the background, you could hear the band's drums playing that double diddle sound. And Coach Childers put his ear, and everybody got fired up.
I loved Miss Smothers.
She always liked you.
Yeah, well, I had a real good time in that class.
Yeah.
And I actually learned a few things that I was able to carry on through life since I'm still single. So bachelor living was very beneficial to me.
I wanted to go out with one of the cheerleaders, Dana Marion. And I don't know if I couldn't get up the nerve to ask her out, or if she wouldn't go out if I did ask her out, or what the deal was. But we were always raising money and having raffles and doing all this kind of stuff. And so there was one raffle, and I think this would be politically incorrect now, but I think the deal was that if you won a particular raffle, you could have a date with the cheerleader of your choice. All I knew was the way it was structured was to allow those of us who were on the letter club to end up on a date with someone who would otherwise not have us. In my case, it was Dana Marion. And so I told Coach Webb in advance that I had already pre-selected the person on the gymnastics team or cheerleading squad or whoever it was that I wanted to go out with, and it was Dana Marion. And Don Webb winked and told me he understood fully what the deal was. And so when he reached into that fish bowl and reached around and pulled out the name, he looked at it and he said, Dana Marion. Couldn't believe my good fortune.
Normal day-to-day school adventure here. Nothing out of the ordinary, and good friends, good teachers.
And you were smoking cigarettes at Caparo Dance?
No, I wasn't smoking cigarettes, but I did drink bourbon beforehand.
Really?
Frank Doolittle came by my house about 2 weeks ago.
Really?
Yeah, and we just chewed the fat, and he said, I remember when you called that pep rally. And I said, everybody remembers that pep rally. It was the Huntsville Grissom football game.
Right.
Back then, everybody got fired up, and and I was talking to Coach Boylan and Connie Fredericks. We were walking down the halls, and Vince Boylan said, wouldn't it be funny if somebody called another pep rally? And you know me, I was an office assistant, so I went in there like I owned the place, went back there and said, would everybody please report to the gym for another media pep rally? And the school came, and the band came, and Ray Reynolds came. And I remember I was so scared, I ran down to the gym and I went to Coach Robinson. And I said, what do I do? He said, you better go hide behind the bleachers upstairs. And I went up there, and all of a sudden Ray Reynolds comes busting into the gym, and he's red as a beet. And he comes stomping up to Coach Robinson, and Coach Robinson's sitting like this, listening to him, and Ray Reynolds was chewing him out, and then Ray Reynolds left, and I looked down there, and I said, is he mad? He went. So I ended up going to his office, and I was
That lick thing again.
Yeah, no, this was worse.
Worse than the licks.
Yeah, he said, Jim, you're expelled. Do not step foot on Grissom High School anymore. And I'm gonna tell you what, I was in tears, and I left this place and went down to the coach's office, and then they grabbed me and brought me back up here where the office is. Coach Childress went in there and said, if Brinkley ain't gonna be there tonight, I got plans. And then Vince Boylan went in there, same thing, and Connie Fredericks and Coach Webb. And anyway, long story short, they called me back into Ray Reynolds' office, and he said, Brinkley, if y'all lose this game tonight, don't you dare step a foot on Grissom High School again. We were a heavy favorite. We were like 3 touchdowns or something.
Right.
We won 6-2.
So that's our story. It's 40 years of history and human evolution.
Well, I want to say thanks for all the help that you've done in this video, Ron, and appreciate you coming from Atlanta and working on this. You've done a terrific job.
I vote that you continue in your present role and that you start preparing for the 50th. I'd also like to say that it's been a great 40 years. It's a wonderful place to grow up in, great memories here, and certainly in your case, you plan to make it an internal home, so that's good. Very appropriate that we're here kind of closing this. And I might say that for everyone who submitted information and pictures, I appreciate your help, and for those that didn't, there's a reason that you're not in the video. So anyway, great friends.
All right, thank
great
you very
place.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mother Maybell strummed out a tune. She told us her story. Neil Armstrong walked on the moon. He shared all the glory. So many have left this world a better place, such a better place. And long after I'm gone, I hope you still hear my laughter. I hope I leave something you need, something that matters. When we're apart and you're alone, just search your heart. You'll have this song long after I'm gone. My mother gave me her smile, and I can see it in you. passing through. I like to leave one thing time can erase. Time can erase. And long after I'm gone, I hope you still hear my laughter. I hope I leave something you need, something that matters. When we're apart and you're alone, just search your heart. You'll have this song long after I'm gone. When we're apart and you're alone, just search your heart. You'll have this song long after I'm gone.
Somebody has painted this.
Wasn't it orange? and white?
Inappropriate
Was it orange
color.
and white?
It should be orange.
Should be orange.
I think tonight we ought to come spray paint it.
I think it should go back orange.
It should be orange.
Should be orange.